To decorate for fall? Me too. So stick around and let's make some fall wreaths. For my wreath today, I'm going to use this tobacco basket that I picked up at Hobby Lobby when they were having a 90% sale off of their Easter decorations, and I think I spent like $2 on this. So I'm going to remove the lavender. It's just attached with some wire on the back, and I'm just going to undo the wire and take that lavender bundle off, and then I am going to leave the welcome sign on there because I do want my wreath to say welcome. So next I'm going to take these corn picks that I found at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use my wire cutters, and I'm just going to cut off the long wire piece that would go into the ground right at the leaves, so I just have like a smaller piece of corn to go in my wreath. So next I just have a pile of all the things that I picked up at the Dollar Tree to make my wreath. So I have the corn picks, and then I picked up some of these apples that I really liked and just some fall leaves, a couple bundles of each of these, and then I picked up several different colors of the berries. The blue ones actually are my favorite. I don't know, they kind of look like blueberries, but I just really like the color, and I thought that it was a nice contrast for fall because blue is really the in color for fall this year. So I just have them all kind of stacked up here. I picked up these little bows. I actually end up not using these bows because they are a little bit too small to go on the wreath, but I just picked up a variety of things that I thought would look good, and I just have them all cut and ready to go. And then next I'm going to take my antique wax from Waverly, and I'm going to paint the Tabasco basket with my wax, and I'm going to do the entire front and the back, so the entire thing is covered. I do actually go over the welcome sign also with the wax, and then I end up going back over it with some white paint, just to give it a more white color. I'm ready to assemble the wreath part, and I'm just going to start with the leaves, and then I'm adding the berries and the apples, and I'm just trying to decide where I want them to be placed. I did cut the apples apart. That was the only pick I cut apart, and then I ended with the corn, and so I'm ready to kind of secure it in place. All I did was tuck the ends into the actual basket. So I'm going to take my piece of wire, and I'm going to go around the entire bundle just like it was with the lavender, and I'm just going to secure it in the back with this piece of wire. So I have it all attached, and I'm ready to just kind of fluff it out. I just start kind of bending it down a little bit so I can see the welcome sign, and then I'm bending out the berries and the flowers so it just looks fuller on the bottom, and I try to get the leaves to go around the corn because I want it to look like it's all kind of together in there. Not just separate pieces. So it takes me a few minutes to kind of fluff it out, and I just keep playing with it. That's the thing with flowers and wreaths, you just keep playing with it, you keep fluffing until you get kind of to a desired look that you're going for. The nice part about attaching this with wire is that it can be easily removed, so if you decide you don't like it anymore or you just want to change it out for a different season, you can take that off and you can have a whole new wreath with new greenery or new accents in it. So I decided it was still kind of missing something, and I remembered I picked up this velvet pumpkin at the Dollar Tree, so I'm going to glue the velvet pumpkin into the middle of the swag part that I put on the basket. So I didn't think it was really able to use wire on that part, so I just decided hot glue was the best option. So I'm going to make a bow, and I'm using my bow maker that I picked up at a garage sale for less than $1, which was a steal. And you just lay the ribbon back and forth in between these two dowels, and then you pinch it together with a pipe cleaner, and then you're just going to fluff out the bow. Bows just take a lot of time to fluff and work with until you get a desired look. Final look, and I just love how it turned out. Fall is my favorite season, and I'm just loving all the blue colors that are coming out this year for fall. I just am in love with the velvet pumpkin, and I just think it gives it that extra touch for the high-end look. So today, as I start out with my tray, I'm going to take the big items first and arrange them into the tray, and then I'm going to move on to the medium items, and then I will move on to the smaller items, just kind of filling in any kind of holes I might have in my tray. And then I go in with some picks, and I kind of put the picks around to fill in any extra space. So these pumpkins that I put out first were actually a DIY I did earlier in the season, and I will link that video down in the description box. The sign I picked up at Hobby Lobby just recently for 40% off, and then these little scarecrows also came from Hobby Lobby. I believe I picked those up probably last year. But I have 3 of these little scarecrows, and I'm just going to put one on each tray tier. As I'm decorating this tray, I just put things places, and then if I don't like it, I move it around to another space. And it's a lot of just playing and using your eye and deciding what you like where. I try to make sure that if I have a bigger item, I don't put something the same size next to it. I try to make it something a little bit with different heights or smaller size, just to give it some different dimensions. So this Fall in Love and Give Thanks little plaques, they were actually picture holders, and I just took out the metal part that was on the top and I used them for a tiered tray. I picked those up a few years ago at Hobby Lobby along with my other little signs that say Happy Fall and Happy Autumn. Now I'm ready to just go in with the pumpkins. These are more my medium-sized things, and I'm just going to start filling in some of the spaces with the different pumpkins that I have. These little beauties came from Hobby Lobby this year, and they were in a package of like 8 to 10. They're made out of fabric and they're squishy. They have like batting or something on the inside of them, but I love the colors of them. I just really been liking blue this fall, so anyway, you can pick those up this year. And then these kind of woody pumpkins, I've had those for several years. I'm not even sure where they came from. If I had to guess, I would say Hobby Lobby.
Jumping from cliffs so high, trusting our wings to fly. Sometimes we're crashing down, but we get up and start from the ground.
My tray also came from Hobby Lobby. It was during the spring, and when they had everything go at like 70% off, I picked it up there during one of those big sales.
Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs.
So the tray is really coming together. I really like how it looks so far. That sign on the top with the girl and the pumpkin, I have really been liking this line they have going at Hobby Lobby this year. I even have a matching mug to that picture. So when I saw the picture, I thought, oh, I have to get it. Just, I don't know. I love it. And I love the mug too. Alright, so now we're ready to put in some other little pumpkins. That blue pumpkin is a fabric and it came from the Dollar Tree. And then I'm just going to go around and kind of add these little pumpkins around to any spots that might be blank. This little squirrel, I actually painted him several years ago. along with that other little squirrel that I put in the tray as well. And I'm almost done with the little small pieces and ready to move on to the picks.
If I could hear my father's voice, he would tell me to move on. He would say I'll be just fine. Yeah, he would tell me we have time, time to laugh and time to heal. Our favorite song is on repeat, drinking wine until the dawn, knowing soon we'll be back home. Ooh, I'm thinking about you. Ooh, I'm wishing that you knew. That I'm thinking about you. I see that smile on your face. You told me about the hidden place, something in the atmosphere.
I'm ready to put the picks in, and I'm just going to go around with several different kinds of leaves, and I think I have one thing of pine cones and berries, and I'm just going to stick it in there to kind of make it look fuller. And all of my picks today came from the Dollar Tree.
Wine until the dawn, knowing soon we'll be back home. Ooh, I'm thinking about you. And I'm wishing that you knew. That I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about you. And I'm wishing that you knew. And I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about down by the sea, at the edge of the water, the coming waves kiss my feet. The touch from the warm wind that's blowing in. into the water to wash away the pain. The devil's breath on my neck, but the touch from a warm wind is blowing in, is keeping me safe. I don't know for how long I can carry on.
So we are almost finished. We're going to take some of this vase filler, and this vase filler came from Hobby Lobby, but I know the Dollar Tree also sells this vase filler. And so all I'm going to do is take some handfuls of it, and I'm going to go around, and anywhere that on my tray there's like a hole or an empty space, I'm going to just put some there, so it gives it some kind of extra glam look to it, and it also fills in any extra space I might have around the lip of my tray.
Do you know I'm looking and I can't help but smile? Do you know how much I love you? You put my favorite song on, I put my feet up, and we just sing along, and I can't help but feeling, just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? Forever. 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 I watch you as you sleep. You don't know I'm looking. With you everything's complete. Do you know how much I love you? I put your favorite song on just to wake you up. When I dance around, I can't help but feeling, just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever?
Here's the final look of the tray, and I just think it looks so stunning. I really love how the vase filler adds to it, and it just gives it this little sparkle and shine all around, and those fabric pumpkins are amazing. I'm so glad I picked them up at Hobby Lobby. Thanks for joining me today. This was fun decorating, and I hope that you got some inspiration for some fun Thanksgiving last minute decorations before your Christmas decorations go up. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would love to have you be part of my community. As always, wherever you are in your journey is a perfect place to start, and I will see you guys in the next video.
This moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? Forever.
So here are the inspiration pieces for our first project, and I found these on the Wayfair website. They are two kind of different types of pine cone wreaths, and we're going to create something that is similar but a little bit more with a modern twist. So to start out with, I'm just going to put some pine cones in this tin, and I'm using some gold Rust-Oleum spray paint, and then I just flip them over and keep spraying until I get the desired look I want. It took about 3 coats to get them all covered with this gold spray paint, because it's kind of light once you get it all on there. But I do follow the same process with the navy Rust-Oleum paint and the burgundy Rust-Oleum paint. So here's our bucket full of gold pine cones, and then our basket full of burgundy pine cones, and then we have another basket full of navy pine cones. So to start out with, I'm going to use this grapevine wreath, and at first I tried to hot glue the pine cones on, but that was just not working. Like I tried to put the hot glue on the pine cones, I tried to put the hot glue on the wreath, and it's just too many holes in all the areas to get a really good firm hold from the hot glue. So once I realized that was not going to work out, I decided to go ahead and use floral wire. So I just took several pieces, I cut them, I measured around the wreath, and then what I did was I put it around the pine cone and put it inside the pine cone so that you can't tell at all that there's a piece of wire there. I twisted it around the back, and then I went ahead and stuck it onto the wreath. And then I go ahead, once I have it in the desired spot on the wreath, I flip over the wreath and I secure it in the back. Now, a few of my pieces weren't quite long enough, so what I did was I just got it to where they could go, and then I wrapped it around just some pieces of the grapevine wreath, and that seemed to hold really well, and I did that for the entire wreath and pine cone. So this is a little bit of a tedious process, so if you're going to recreate this, just make sure you have a TV show or a podcast. I've really been into podcasts lately. I love to listen to the Dateline podcast, so if you're a podcast person, let me know down in the comments what's your favorite podcast. So once I do that, I go ahead and just do all of the pine cones around the whole wreath in the desired grouping. So I was just going like every other one, like in a diagonal of blue and burgundy and gold. So now I have these leather pumpkins and leather leaves that I picked up at Hobby Lobby over in their fall section, and they are 40% off, and I'm just going to go around in a little pattern with my leaves. And right now I'm not gluing them on, I just am situating them in the place I want them to be before I glue them on. That way, if I don't like it or I want it to go someplace else, I can always move it. That's a really big tip. Don't glue until you're confident that's where you want it to be. So then I just go around with my leather pumpkins and I do the same thing. And then once I get them into the desired area on the wreath that I want, I'm going to go back in with my hot glue gun and I'm going to secure them down, and then this project is complete. Navy and leather together? Yes, please. I love the combination. If you're loving the combination too, make sure you go down and hit that like button. It really helps my channel be seen by other people. And let's get back into the video. So our next inspiration piece was a pine cone tree, and there's 2 separate ones here. There is just a plain pine cone tree and then a more Christmassy pine cone tree. I'm going to go somewhere in between there because we're going to be creating a fall pine cone tree. I'm using my navy spray paint to spray paint my cone. That way, just in case when we glue on the pine cones, if there is any empty spots, we won't be able to see the white cone shining through. So I always forget to wear gloves. Don't forget to wear gloves if you're using spray paint. I always forget until I'm in the middle, and then it's too late and my hands are a hot mess. So I'm using a candle holder that I picked up at a garage sale. If you don't have a candle holder like this, they sell all kinds of candle holders at the Dollar Tree. I'm sure that there is one there that would fit the bottom of a cone. That's all you're really needing, is for it to fit the bottom to be glued on. So now we're ready to glue the pine cones onto the styrofoam tree. This was also kind of tedious. It was really difficult to get the pine cones to stick on there, so it was just definitely one at a time, and then I had to hold it on to the tree for quite a while before I moved on to the next one. So here you can see that I have the tree laying down and I'm adding the cones, but it was really heavy and it kept turning over. So then I put it up against this box because I was thinking, okay, well, if I lean it up against something, then I'll have better leverage as to gluing it on. But that also did not work. It just kind of kept going over to the side. So then I decided, okay, there has to be a better way to glue these on. So instead, I decided to put the cone up, standing up, and then I attached it, and that worked a lot better. So after I got these ones glued on, then I just went around the entire cone standing up and gluing them on. So here's all the pine cones glued on, and then I just took some burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I just made a simple bow at the top. And now I'm just cutting some little pieces with my leather ribbon that also came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just gonna make some little burlap. They're not really bows, they're kind of bows, I guess we can call them bows, but I'm just gonna put them together and tie some twine, and then I'm going to attach them into the blank spaces into the tree. That way it gives it a little bit more fuller look. Then I have these tags that I also got from Hobby Lobby, and they are leather tags, and I'm going to take the one that says grateful. I go ahead and take the leather part that was the tag and I unattach that, and then I hot glue it to the middle of the bow. Then I'm going to take that leather part that was on it already. I tied it into a little shoelace bow. I'm going to glue that just to where the hole was, and then this project is complete. So for this project, the inspiration piece is a pine cone swag. It's really a hanger, and I'm using these really giant pine cones that my dad had. If you're not able to find or you don't have the giant pine cones, I know last year at the Dollar Tree they sold giant pine cones that were on a stick, and it was $1 for each pine cone, but you could recreate with this project with those pine cones if they bring them out again this year. So I'm just using my same spray paint. I'm using the gold and the navy and the burgundy, and I'm spraying each pine cone with a color. So I decided to go ahead and do 2 of the pine cones with gold, and then 1 navy and 1 burgundy. And then I'm taking that faux leather ribbon from the Dollar Tree and I'm going to attach it into the top of the pine cone. So if you can't find the faux leather ribbon, I was only lucky enough to find like 2 rolls of it ever when it came out. So if you're not lucky enough to find that, I know that Hobby Lobby also sells faux leather ribbon, so that's also an option. And then I will link down in my description box a Amazon link to some faux leather ribbon as well if you want to get it on Amazon. So I'm just cutting these pieces into different lengths because when we have them hanging, we don't want them all to be the same length. So I have a short one, a long one, and I'm just measuring them up against each other, trying to decide where I want it to be. Now my shortest piece of ribbon ends up being slightly too short when I go to make the hanger, but I make it work. So just don't make them too short. Then I'm just putting some hot glue in the middle of I guess this is the bottom of the pine cone, and I'm just gluing my faux leather onto the pine cone. And I do that for all 4 pine cones. This was really fun, and I've never really worked with a giant pine cone before. I also thought it would really be neat to use like some spray glitter or just regular glitter on these too after I got it done. So, if you're not into the navy and burgundy colors and you want to do traditional fall colors, that would work too. You could do orange or green or brown. That would be just as pretty too. So this is definitely customizable to whatever project you were doing. You also wouldn't have to use the faux leather here. You could also use like twine or burlap or something like that to go with more of a farmhouse look. So there's a lot that you could do here. So once I get those all glued onto the pine cones, then I loop the leather ribbon at the top to give myself a hanger, and then I'm just going to tie that with some twine really tightly because these end up being kind of heavy. And then I'm going to take some more of the faux leather ribbon and I'm just going to make a simple bow. These are like my favorite bows. I just cross over whatever I'm using. So any kind of ribbon, usually if it's a smaller ribbon it works better, but you cross it over like it's one of those awareness ribbons, and then you're going to glue it into the middle there, and then we're going to flip it over and we're going to pull down the loopy part to give us the bow. So once we pull that part down, we're going to just put some glue where we already put glue on the other side. Now we're going to turn it over, put glue on this side, pull down the loopy part, glue it there, and then we have a really simple but super cute bow. Now when you flip these over, you can also put something in the middle of it if you don't like the middle, if you think the ribbon looks funny. I sometimes put things in the middle and sometimes I don't. It just depends. This one I did not because I already had faux leather at the top of this hanger, and so I didn't really think that it needed anything. But all I'm going to do is glue it right there where my twine is so you can't see the twine, and then this project is complete. I'll start with this sign that I picked up at a garage sale, and it has this very bright yellow color around it and these mountains that are painted on the front, and so I'm just going to repaint this entire wood piece with white Waverly chalk paint. Once I have it all painted, I make sure you can still see the lines on the wood piece, and then I'm going to take these folk art stencils that I got at Walmart, and I'm going to use the leaf stencil that was in there. And I'm going to use my pumpkin Waverly chalk paint and my maize Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to mix them together, and then I'm just going to make kind of an orangey color for some fall leaves, and then I'm going to use just the yellow as well to make some other leaves, and I'm just going to randomly place them all over my board. So next I'm going to take some twine that I made into little bows, and I'm going to glue the little bows at the bottom of the leaf at the start of the leaf stem. I realized as I'm gluing these on that one of the leaves at the bottom of my wood sign is upside down, and normally I wouldn't care, but with gluing the bows on, it looked funny gluing a bow upside down. So instead I decided to just paint over that and give it just a top of the leaf instead of the bottom of the leaf. That way the sign looks like it's falling leaves. Here's the final look. It was so simple and it turned out so cute, and I just really love how it looks on my shelf, and it really does look like the leaves are falling down. I just love how it turned out. Next project is another wood sign that I found at the thrift store, and it was really faded, and so I decided to give it a new look. So I'm just going to take my Waverly white chalk paint, and I'm only going to go over the front of this with one coat. So as you can see as I'm painting, there's a lot of wood still coming through, and I wanted to keep it that way so it looks distressed without having to do the extra work of distressing. And next I'm going to take my buffalo plaid stencil that I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to lay that on top of the piece of wood, and I'm just going to stencil in the squares and the hashtags with my ink by Waverly chalk paint. I'm just using my regular stencil brush from the Dollar Tree. I will link the video here in the description box and up here in the right corner for the furniture flip that I did with this same stencil and this same brush. So you don't have to buy expensive brushes for your projects to turn out good. You can use the Dollar Tree brushes and they work just as well. So here it looks with just the stencil being done. I have one little piece to add to it, so I had taken off this little hanger from another sign that I picked up at that same thrift store, and I'm just going to screw the little piece into this wood sign so that we can use it as a picture frame. I chose to use a handheld screwdriver, so this did take me some extra elbow grease, but I did finally get it in. So here's the final look without a picture, and then I go ahead and attach a fall picture, and I think that it turned out so cute and it looks so adorable on my mantle. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. So for all the projects today, we're going to be using this paper pack that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. It is by Paper Studio, and so it did happen to be on sale this week. I know they go through a cycle where it's like every other week, so you can wait maybe a week or so, check it out, and then you can get it for half off as well. So I just picked out about 8 different sheets of paper, and these first set of cones that we're going to make, I'm going to cut into 6 by 6 squares. You get 4 squares out of each piece of paper. They look kind of small at first. I was like, but actually they work out just fine. So then I'm using some foam board from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just creating a circle. Mine ends up being more of an oval, really. It's not quite a full circle shape, but it doesn't really matter. No one's going to see the underneath side of it. If you're worried about it being a perfect circle, you could always trace something, but then you're going to draw a circle inside as well. So once I got those all cut out, and I took the scrapbook paper that I had cut out, and all I did was roll it into a cone shape. I'm using hot glue here, and I'm just gluing down the bottom of the cone, and then I'm going to glue the bottom edges together. So there's going to be some spaces up towards the top, but we want the bottom part where the coney type shape is to be flush together down there. So we're just going to follow that line of the circle, and we're going to go all around the foam piece. So I'm just showing you, like you can see here, that there is some big spaces in between. The thing that I kind of got my inspiration from online, it said that they just glued smaller pieces on top of those. I didn't really like that, so what I did was, once I got the full cone circle glued on, I just went back in with some hot glue and some more of this sized cone shapes, and I just filled them in through all the spaces that were showing. So then when I'm all done, I won't have any space here. I used about, I would say, 19 to 20 cone shapes, and my circle was about 14 inches in diameter. So you could go a smaller size here if you want. So here I'm just showing you how I rolled it up. The tighter you roll it, the more of a cone shape you get. And again, I just used hot glue, and I only glued the tail of the paper on to the rest of the paper. I didn't put any other kind of adhesive there. So these are 4 by 6 pieces of paper that I rolled into the cone shape as well, and then I'm just gluing those on top of the other cones. So we have more dimension here, and I went about every 2 cones, I glued another cone on top. Now I'm taking this pumpkin that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I'm using some folk art chalk paint, and I'll list down in the description box which paints I used, and I'll have a link to Amazon if you can get them there. But I'm using kind of non-traditional colors here just because my scrapbook paper had some more blues and greens in it, so I thought it would be fun to make my pumpkin a blue and green color as well. So I have the green color kind of on the underneath side, and then the blue as the cutout pops here in this piece of wood. So this, like I said, did come from the Dollar Tree. I think this is a really nice wood piece. They have really some great pieces out this fall at the Dollar Tree as far as like decorating goes. Some really fun fall and Halloween pieces. So make sure you go check that out. So this ribbon also came from the Dollar Tree. It's one of my favorite patterns that they bring out every year. I just do a crisscross, and then I fold, and then I'm going to take some twine and I'm going to wrap it around the middle of the bow, and then I tie it in a knot. So it gives it a really tight look, and you get a really fun bow shape, and it's not really difficult to make. You can hot glue the middle as well. The only thing about hot gluing it down in the middle is then you really need to put something over the top of it, because it's pretty noticeable when you use the hot glue as opposed to the twine, because once we tie it really tight here in the middle, it really doesn't need anything to sit on top of it unless you want there to be something on top of it. And for this bow, I didn't glue anything into the center of it. So I'm going to cut off the twine. I do go ahead and dovetail my ends, and then I'm going to use my hot glue to glue it onto the top of the pumpkin. So my scissors were getting kind of dull, and I didn't realize that when I dovetailed them. So it's a little bit of a rustic dovetail, if that's even a thing, but I just went ahead and went with it. So I just glue that bow to the top, and then we're going to take this pumpkin wood cutout and we're going to glue it to the top of our cone. So where our cone wreath had the hole in the middle, we are going to take this pumpkin and just using hot glue we're going to sit it. You don't have to smash it because remember this is paper, so you're just going to sit it kind of gently onto the paper and press down. Now these cones are a really tight hold on this foam board, so you should have a really good hold. I do go ahead and put a piece of twine on the back, and then this project is complete.
I wanna do it all with you by my side. If you're in, meet me here tonight. Be brave and come along. I'll be your ride. Promise we don't need no brake lights. We can travel the world, so just say yes.
So I've never made a paper wreath before. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever made a paper wreath. I want to try rosettes next time. I saw some really cool ideas online that had some rosette wreaths, and I'd never seen something like that before. So I want to try that maybe in a future video. Let me know if you're loving the idea of paper and wreaths or just paper projects in general, and I'll see if I can come up with some more of those. Let me know down in the comments maybe what you would like to see using scrapbook paper. If you're loving the projects today, make sure you hit that like button. It really helps my video be seen by other people. And let's get back to the other projects. This is a really simple technique. All I'm doing is taking ribbon and wrapping it around the wreath form. This is a 12-inch wreath form from the Dollar Tree, and this is also Dollar Tree ribbon. So this took me about a roll and a half of ribbon to cover this whole metal wreath frame. I'm also going to take a foam green wreath form from the Dollar Tree. That is a mouthful, and I'm going to cover it with this brown and orange plaid ribbon and do the same technique, and then I just glued one on top of the other. So then I took some picks from the Dollar Tree, I cut them all apart, and I'm using some twine, and I'm just going to tie them into a bundle. That way I don't have the bottom stems to worry about when I glue it onto my wreath, and then I get a full bundle but without all the excess stuff. So then I'm just going to place it where I want it to be, and then I'm just going to put a generous amount of hot glue on the back, and then I'm going to press firmly onto the wreath. So it did have to hold it here for a little bit just to make sure that it was stuck on there. So then I took these leaf and acorn cutouts that they have at the Dollar Tree. They are like a garland that you can do or make ornaments out of them, and I'm just going to cover them with some scrapbook paper from my scrapbook pack. All I did was trace around and glue it on top, and then I'm going to make another simple bow. This is another ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I do fold it in half, and then I accordion it together, and then again using my twine I'm just going to wrap it around the middle so that I have something to hold on to, and then I just tie it in a really tight knot. Once I get it all tied up like that, I'm going to go ahead and take my scissors and dovetail the ends, and then I glue it onto the top of the bundle. And then I'm going to take the little cutouts that I covered with the scrapbook paper, and I'm going to glue them underneath this ribbon. I decided that some of the glue was showing from where I glued both of the wreath forms together, so I took some nautical rope and I'm just going to wrap it around where the two wreath forms come together, and then this project is complete.
Whatever comes next. This or that. Getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday night. But drinking where I'm by an open fire. Make love or fight. This or that. This or that.
So this is a wreath upcycle. I used to have this wreath hanging in my classroom when I taught elementary, but I don't teach elementary anymore, and so I don't have an apple theme. So I decided to just remove all the apples, but keep the raffia and ribbon at the top. So I'm using these Dollar Tree pumpkins. These are amazing. If you can find them in your store, I highly recommend picking them up. I wish I could have found more, but I wasn't lucky enough to. So I'm using my same folk art chalk paint, and I'm just going to cover both of the pumpkins with the chalk paint. So as you see, normally you would trace on the outside, but if I were to flip this pumpkin over, there's a lip there, and when I traced it, I wouldn't have the exact shape that I was looking for. So instead, I just decided to put it on top and trace it out. You're going to have a good lip on the paper when you glue it on, because like I said, there is like a space between there, but that's okay because we're going to use our sanding block and sand it off. So I'm just using a regular Elmer's glue stick. I find that it sticks on the scrapbook paper just fine to wood, and then you don't have all of the wrinkles from Mod Podge. So I just go ahead and make sure that I cover the entire piece with my glue stick, and because I'm a teacher and kind of a glue snob, I only use the Elmer's glue brand. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and glue the piece of paper on and make sure that it's totally dry before I start sanding. So make sure, you can see my paper was kind of moving there, so just make sure you're pulling your sanding block towards you and not away from you. So I'm going to do all this sanding around the side where there is again a lip, but there's like an edge there. You can see as I'm sanding that you can see part of the edge. You want to sand that really good, and once you get you can start to see like it's coming apart, you can just pick up the paper and peel it off, and that's what I love the most about using this sanding technique, especially if there's a lip. You can just peel off the paper and keep going. It gives you a really smooth edge. I'm going to do that for both pumpkins. Then I'm going to take some raffia. This also came from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to tie a little shoelace bow, and I'm going to glue some raffia to the top of both of these pumpkins. I think these turned out so adorable. Let me know down in the comments if you're into traditional colors, or do you like kind of non-traditional fall colors. I'll put a video up above here from last year that I did some pumpkins that were non-traditional colors. I'm into blue, so that's what I always tend to pick, but you can check out the ceramic pumpkins I painted last year right here. So here we are, we're gluing our raffia on, and this is just simple, nothing fancy. You could add buttons here if you wanted, or any other kind of picks here onto it. I wanted the scrapbook paper to be the star of the show, so that's why I just used raffia. So the last step to this is just to glue it to the grapevine wreath, and then this project is complete. For this project, I'm going to be using one of these easels that I picked up at the Dollar Tree. It was over in the picture frame area, kind of by the wedding stuff. And I'm just using a regular piece of scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby, and it's the buffalo check. For some reason, this video made the paper look holographic, but it isn't. It's just regular buffalo check paper. So I'm using a glue stick to glue my paper onto the chalkboard. I don't like to use Mod Podge. I'm just not very good at getting the wrinkles out, and I find that the glue stick works just as fine on any kind of wood type projects with paper, so that usually is my go-to. So I'm using a sanding block from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to get off any excess paper that's on the edges, and then I'm ready to move on to the next part of the project. So I'm going to be using some of these ornaments that they have over at the Dollar Tree. They have them for every holiday, and they're always so cute. The fall ones were super adorable. So they had like a latte looking one, they had a pumpkin, and they had this fox, and I thought the fox was adorable. So I'm going to use the fox today, and I'm just using some plaid scrapbook paper that came from a paper pack from Hobby Lobby. That paper pack is amazing. If you missed my video where I made the paper cone wreath, I will list that up here in the cards. I use the same paper pack and it's just adorable. I just am really finding that I love the paper in there. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the fox cutout that I did on the paper onto our fox, and then I'm going to use some ribbon I had in my stash. So this ribbon I actually bought from Michael's for Easter, and the thing I love about some types of ribbon is they can be really universal. So I use this at Easter time. It's also appropriate for fall. So if you're going to splurge on some crafting items, I totally suggest ribbon, like buying ribbon that you can use multiple seasons. So you always get that vibe. Like I love some of the red and white buffalo check ribbon that they have at the Dollar Tree. That could be used for Christmas and Valentine's. So I always try, if I'm going to splurge on ribbon at Hobby Lobby, I try to buy ribbon that I know is going to be, multiple uses. So once I get my bow made, I'm going to go ahead and glue it onto the middle of our fox's neck. And then I'm taking a tumbling tower block and I'm going to glue it on the back, and I'm going to attach that to the front of the easel, and then this project is complete.
Someone did you wrong. I can see it in your eyes. It's like your fire is gone. Across your face, it is written across.
So I'm going to start out with this Dollar Tree vase and this group of wheat that I picked up at a thrift store, and I'm just going to start gluing the wheat to the outside of the vase. When I do projects like this, I like to watch TV or listen to a book to make the time go by faster, because it can be kind of tedious. Once I have it all glued on the outside of the vase, I'm just going to take what was left from this group of wheat and I'm going to put it inside the vase so it looks like it's a full bundle of wheat. It was a little tricky getting it in there since there was wheat on the outside, but I finally got it all in. I'm going to take some Dollar Tree ribbon and I'm just going to wrap it around the bottom of the wheat and measure, and then I'm going to cut 2 pieces of that and wrap it around towards the top of the wheat to give it the band look from the inspiration picture. And here is the final look. I really like how it turned out. It is a lot taller than I thought it was going to be, but it is really unique, and I think it could last all the way through Thanksgiving, so I was really happy with it. So I picked up this dome at the Dollar Tree, and it's quite a bit smaller than the inspiration piece, so this becomes kind of a miniature dome. I also had picked up another package of those wheat stems at the same thrift store, so I'm just using another package. This package also cost $2, and I'm just going to measure in the dome and then cut down to where the wheat can stand up in the dome. Once I get all the wheat cut, then I just make them into a bundle, and I use a rubber band to kind of hold them together to stand up on the bottom of the dome. Once I have them in the bundle, I'm just going to take some twine and I'm going to wrap it around the rubber band part so you can't see that, and then I'm going to glue it to the bottom of the dome. Once I glue it to the bottom, I just take a little bit more twine and wrap it around to kind of hide some of the glue that's there, and then it is finished. So as I try to put the dome lid on, I realized that the wheat is still slightly too large, like it's smashed up towards the top of the dome, and I don't like how that looks. So I go ahead and take the top off and then I trim it, and then this is the final look. So I do really like how it turned out. It's a lot smaller than I thought it was going to be, so it doesn't quite match the inspiration piece, but it is still pretty cute. For the next project, I picked up a candle holder at the Dollar Tree, and I'm still using that same bundle of wheat from the dome, and I'm just going to measure the wheat to glue it onto the candle holder. I start gluing it onto the candle holder, and I just make sure that just the wheat, the tops of the wheat, are glued onto the candle holder. And I just kind of go around in various sizes so that they're not even along the candle holder rim. Once I have all the wheat glued on, I'm going to take those fake candles from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to drop one into the candle holder. I really love how it turned out. This is my favorite project of the day because it's so rustic looking and simple and just really pretty. Last inspiration is more of a decorating tip, but I had wheat left over and I had been seeing these vases on Pinterest with wheat in them, and so I pulled out a glass pitcher that I had in my cabinet and I put the rest of the wheat stems I had left over, and I think that it turned out really pretty on my dining room table. So for this project, we're going to use a mason jar and some leaves from the Dollar Tree, and I did go ahead and use one full package of leaves on this jar. So I'm using hot glue today to glue my leaves onto the jar. Another option here would be Mod Podge if you wanted to do that. I highly suggest, if you're going to use Mod Podge, that you cover the back of the leaf first and then you put the Mod Podge on top of that. That way it gives it a more secure hold. I thought hot glue was working just fine for me, so that's why I decided to do that. If you wanted your kids to help you with this project, definitely Mod Podge might be the way to go. But once I get all the leaves on, I just kind of go staggered around to give it a more fall look so I don't have all the same colors in one area. I took some of this green raffia that also came from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to securely tie it in a knot at the front and then use some scissors to clip off my raffia that is too long. This project would be really great with one of those tea lights from the Dollar Tree inside, or you could also use some flameless candles from Amazon. The ones I had were slightly too big to fit into the jar, but I then took some of the green leaves from that same package, glued them to the front, and then this project is complete. I'm not gonna lie, I've bought this item several times at the Dollar Tree and it always gets stuck in my stash and I never use it because I'm really not sure what to do with it. So this year I thought it would be super fun to create some DIYs showing you how to use this overlooked item at the Dollar Tree. If you're loving the DIYs today, I would love if you went down and hit that like button. It really helps this video be seen by other people. And let's get back to the video. For this project, we're going to be creating a leaf bowl, and I'm going to start out by just putting a piece of saran wrap over the bottom of a bowl that I've turned upside down. Then I'm going to put some Mod Podge on my paintbrush, and I'm going to paint on the Mod Podge to one side of my leaf. So I chose to put the back side of the leaf down on the paper, so when my bowl is completed, I have the back side of the leaf on the inside of the bowl. If you're wanting the front side of the leaf to be on the inside of your bowl, then you would just paint the leaves and put the back side of the leaf facing you. That way the front side of the leaf will be on the inside of the basket. For me, I didn't really care either way because if you put anything in the basket, you won't be able to tell which side was the bottom or the top. So I'm just doing the same technique throughout this whole process, and it does take me one package of the leaves to cover this whole saran wrap. Now this is a really easy project, it's just time consuming. So here we have it all glued on to the first piece of saran wrap, and all I'm going to do next is put another piece of saran wrap over the top of it, and I'm going to pull slightly. That way I'm getting a good firm seal on my Mod Podge, because I want that to kind of set in for a little while. So I'm going to go ahead and sit this outside for about 4 hours, and then we'll see what it looks like here after 4 hours. So here it is. We're going to remove the first piece of the saran wrap. If you just choose to sit it outside and not take off the saran wrap, it increases the drying time by quite a bit. So you're going to want to let a certain amount of time go by just to kind of set it in. Then remove your top layer of saran wrap. I'm going to leave the bottom layer of the saran wrap on, and I'm going to let it sit for another 4 hours in a warm place. So in my case, I did go ahead and put it out in the garage because it was starting to get later in the day. So I go ahead and I wait another 4 hours, and then I've removed the other piece of the saran wrap. I just go ahead and sit it in the bowl to let it continue drying, and then this project is complete.
Not long ago you got hurt, someone did you wrong. I can see it in your eyes, it's like your fire is gone. Across your face, it is written across your face. If you wanna talk, I'm right here, not gonna leave.
So you guys know I love a good cone tree. I am using a styrofoam cone that I've spray painted with some brown satin Rust-Oleum spray paint. If you wanted to do this project with a paper cone, that would work just fine as well. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, and if you've watched any of my other videos, I've also used party hats from the Dollar Tree in lieu of a cone, and those work just as well. I'll post that video up here above if you want to see the Christmas trees I made out of the party hats. Anyway, I'm just using the same package of leaves, and I'm just going to glue them all the way down this tree. So what I did was I glued on the top leaves, and then I just started alternating the colors going around the cone, and I'm gluing them underneath the leaf above them. I do not put that much glue on the leaves. I'm only putting it on the edge where I'm going to glue it, and the rest of it I leave without glue because it kind of fluffs up, and I like the way that it looks like with the fluffiness of the leaves. Now it's totally up to you. If you wanted to glue your whole leaf down, you could totally do that as well. And if you're using a paper cone, you know, you might need more or less of the leaves. But here it is about halfway completed, and like I said, I'm just going around with various colors just to give it a really fun look. Now you could stop here if you wanted. I'm trimming off the very bottom because I'm not sitting this on top of anything other than like a table. So if I were to just sit it down, it would be hanging over, and that kind of bothered me. But if that doesn't bother you, or you're going to stick it on like a candle holder or something like that, you can totally let these pieces hang down. I went ahead and cut them off, and then I fluff out the leaves to give it a more fluffier look. I think this is super cute just the way it is. The top of mine, I tried to glue the leaves on top first, and so I have a little bit of glue residue there, and I didn't like that, so I decided to go ahead and add some more embellishments here. But if you didn't have that at the top, you could totally leave it like that. So I decided to take these little berries from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to stick them in periodically throughout the tree, and all I'm doing is putting the stem underneath the leaves and gluing it there. This is super simple, and I just thought that it needed a little something, and so this was fun and also came from the Dollar Tree. So once I get those all glued into the tree, I'm taking some more of my raffia. I'm just going to tie a regular shoelace bow with my raffia, and you'll see here that I tie it pretty tight because I don't want it to come apart. So I pull on the two ends super tightly to give it a nice bow shape, and then I'm just going to take my scissors and trim off the edges because this is going to sit at the top of my tree. And all I'm going to do is hot glue that into the middle of the top. Then I decided to go ahead and take these leaves that came with the berries, and I'm going to glue them periodically throughout the tree, kind of where I have the berries situated. I did glue another leaf in the middle of the bow at the top, and then this project is complete.
It's like your fire is gone across your face. It is written across your face. If you wanna talk, I'm right here, not gonna leave your side. Just feel free to open up when the moment's right. Across your face.
For this DIY, we're going to use some cotton stems that I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to, of course, be using our maple leaves again. I'm going to take 2 different colors of leaves, and I'm going to glue them at the base of each one of the cotton pods. If you're looking at my pick here, you can see I have a piece that's kind of sticking out that has nothing by it. There should have been a cotton pod there as well. It could have fallen off or might not have even been there when I purchased it, and so I do go ahead and glue some leaves there as well because it was part of the stem. Something I want to note here is that I kind of felt like I put too many leaves on my stems, and when I trimmed them, one of them was just a little bit too short and I felt like it was too busy. So if you're going to recreate this, go ahead and only glue on 1 leaf at a time at the base of the cotton pod, and then you can kind of decide if that's enough for you, and then if you don't feel like it's enough, then start adding that second leaf. But that way, you know, you don't have to regret it later if you don't like having both of the leaves there. So once I get those glued on to the cotton stems, all I'm going to do to style this is to put it in a vase, and the vase that I'm going to be using today is a DIY that I've done previously, and I'm going to show you that here in a second, but it's just a vase from the Dollar Tree that I wrapped around some nautical rope at the bottom and used some white rocks inside as a filler. So I just wrapped it around 6 times if you're wanting to recreate that, added the white rocks from the craft department at Dollar Tree, and then I'm going to add the pick here, and then this project is complete.
If you wanna go out, we can go out. You can hide away just for one night. But if you wanna cry, just let it out. I'm by your side now.
So for today's projects, I'm going to start out making a wreath holder. So I'm going to be using these wooden stakes from Home Depot, and I'm going to glue them together using my wood glue. I just go ahead and glue them together, and then I secure them and I wait overnight, and then this is what it ends up looking like. I did use a gold spray paint on top of this just to give it the final look of shimmer. So then I'm going to use the wreath form that I'm going to be using for the rest of the projects today, and I just kind of measure where I want it to hang on the wood posts. Then I screw in my hook, and then this is complete. You can hang whatever you want on this piece. It doesn't have to be just the wreaths, but I think it turns out so cute, and you can use it all year for any kind of decor. So to start with the pieces that we're going to hang on this, I got these wreath forms from Hobby Lobby. They were $3.99, and I also picked up a package of these wood rounds. I believe the wood rounds were like $4.49. So all I'm doing is kind of going around the wreath before gluing so that I can make sure that I like the placement of them, and then I'll go back and glue them down. Then I'm using some Dollar Tree ribbon, and I'm sorry today I didn't actually measure out how much ribbon I used. I'm doing this kind of fold over bow, and I make this bow all the time. Normally though, I glue them, especially if they're smaller bows, but I've been lately really enjoying using some twine to tie them off in the middle. So I just kind of fold it over, make sure I like the amount of ribbon I have, and then I go ahead and make the bow. So I crisscross it, I fold it down, and then I'm going to do like an accordion here, and I'm going to hold it with my thumb and forefinger. Then I'm going to take some twine, and this is just regular twine from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to wrap it around the middle where my finger is holding the bow together. I wrap it about 3 or 4 times, and then I turn it over and I hold it super tight when I let my hand go, and then I'm just going to tie a knot here. So as I am tying it, when I go to cinch the first one, I tie as tight as I possibly can. Then I tie the second part of the knot, and I tie again as tight as I can, and then I go ahead and cut off the excess. I love the way these bows look. They're super easy to make. You can put things in the middle of the bow if you want, or you don't have to. I do 3 different kinds of looks with it today for each project. For this one, I'm just going to leave it as is with the twine in the middle. I'm going to dovetail the ends, and then I'm going to glue it to the wreath. So there are so many things that you can do with this one bow. I just think it's really versatile. It's super easy, and if you're not good at bow making, this is definitely a bow that you can start out with. So I just kind of off center my bow on the wood rounds. This is super simple and rustic, and then this project is complete.
Whatever comes next. This or that. Getting drunk on whiskey on a Tuesday night. A drinking well I'm by an open fire. Make love or fight. This or that.
So I'm using another one of those wreath forms from Hobby Lobby, and then I found this package of pine cones. They were super cute. They were just these little tiny pine cones, but what really caught my eye was the copper ones that they had in there. They must have used some spray paint or something. They are really beautiful, so that's really why I ended up buying them. But all I'm going to do is hot glue the pine cones to the outer circle of this wreath, and then I go back in and I hot glue another layer of pine cones to the inner circle of the wreath, just so you won't see any of the cardboard wreath form. Once I do that, I'm ready to do the bow. So I'm going to take 2 ribbons this time, and I'm going to measure. I just went ahead and cut the length of the patterned ribbon to where I wanted it to be, and then I measured the plain ribbon and I just cut it the exact same size. So I'm doing the same fold over bow, and this way I wanted to show you guys what it looks like when you use 2 ribbons. So I did the same thing, crisscrossed it, and then I'm doing the accordion, and I'm going to take my twine and I'm going to wrap it here in the middle. I do wrap it 3 or 4 times, and I make sure that it's really secure before I ever take my hand off of there. That way the bow doesn't just totally fall apart and have to start over. And once I get that, I'm going to cinch it for the first time super tight. And then I go ahead and tie the knot part, and then I cinch that part super tight. And then I'm going to go ahead and cut off any excess twine that I have there on the bow. Like I said, this bow is like one of my very favorites. It's super easy to make, and there's a lot of things that you could do with it. So like I said, I added 2 ribbons here. If you wanted to add 3 or 4 ribbons, this bow would still be able to do what you needed it to do. You could make them smaller, larger loops. It's totally up to you, and then you could fluff them out. So all I'm doing is kind of fluffing out the bow part. I try it a couple different ways. I pull it out like towards the top with the plain ribbon. I don't really like that, so I end up pulling it down towards the bottom before I put it on the wreath. But I just fluff a little bit, and that's the one thing about ribbon. You just have to keep fluffing until you like the way that it looks. I go ahead and dovetail the ends because that is one simple thing that you can do to make your projects look more high-end or more of a boutique finish. So if you're selling them, or even if you're just giving them away, that gives you kind of the wow factor when you give it to somebody. So I decided that I wanted to have something in the middle of this one, so I'm just using a scrap piece of ribbon. And this just came off of the dovetailing area. It was a tiny bit too short, so I had to really pull it, but that's okay because the tighter the middle of a bow is, the more of the bow shape you get. So I'm just using hot glue here. I'm going to attach it there. Then I decide the placement of this bow should be in the middle, and then this project is complete.
I wanna do it all with you by my side. If you're in, meet me here tonight. Be brave and come along. I'll be alright. Promise we don't need no brake lights. We can try
using the same wreath form here, and I got these wood pieces at Hobby Lobby in the Christmas section last year on clearance, but I did see them again this year if you're wanting to recreate this. So they're just the birch wood, and I just cut them apart. They come in like a long strip, and all I'm doing is hot gluing them onto the wreath form. I go around with one layer, and then I go back over them with another layer just to kind of cover up one of the area that had a like space. That's all. Then I'm going to just make that same bow, and I'm going to glue it here, and then I take one of my solo wood flowers and glue that to the middle, and then this project is complete.